A woman walks into America's most elite aviation academy wearing faded jeans and worn sneakers. Within minutes, she's humiliated, mocked, and thrown out like garbage. But what these privileged bullies didn't know was that this simple woman held secrets that would shake their world to its core. This is the story of Maya Reynolds, a name that would soon be whispered in aviation circles with a mixture of awe and terror. But on that scorching Nevada morning, she was just another target for the cruelest game the elite love to play, destroying someone they think is beneath them. What happened next would become legend. What happened next would change everything. The Nevada desert burned under a merciless sun as Maya Reynolds stepped onto the grounds of Skyward Aviation Academy. The heat shimmered off the tarmac like liquid fire, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with the arrogance that saturated this place. This wasn't just any flight school, this was where America's elite came to play pilot, where family connections mattered more than actual skill, and where your bank account determined your worth in the cockpit. The academy's gleaming hangars stretched across the desert like monuments to privilege, housing private jets that cost more than most people would see in a lifetime. Maya looked nothing like the other students. While they strutted around in custom-tailored flight suits worth thousands of dollars and designer aviators that cost more than her monthly rent, she wore a faded gray t-shirt that had seen better days, jeans with a tear at the knee that she'd patched herself, and canvas sneakers that had walked through more real battles than any of these posers could imagine. Her only possession was a threadbare canvas bag slung over her shoulder, the same bag that had accompanied her through deployments these spoiled brats couldn't even pronounce the names of. The Academy's promotional cameras were already rolling, capturing what they thought would be another feel-good story about their inclusive admission process. How wrong they were. To everyone watching, she was nobody. A charity case. A mistake. A poor woman who had somehow slipped through their screening process and dared to dream above her station. They had no idea they were staring at a legend. They had no idea they were about to meet their reckoning. The first blow came before she even reached the main building. A security guard, his uniform pressed and his badge gleaming in the desert sun, stepped directly into her path. His face twisted with the kind of disgust usually reserved for something you'd scrape off your shoe. Lost your way, sweetheart? This is an aviation academy, not a garage sale, he sneered, his voice loud enough to attract the attention of nearby students and instructors. He pointed toward the exit with theatrical disdain. The soup kitchen is about 10 miles that way. Laughter rippled through the gathering crowd. Camera phones appeared as if by magic, already recording what they assumed would be a humiliating rejection. The Academy's official cameras zoomed in on her worn bag, framing it as evidence of her unworthiness. Maya said nothing. She didn't flinch, didn't argue, didn't show even a flicker of emotion. She simply looked at the guard with eyes that had seen actual combat, actual life and death, actual stakes that mattered. Then she walked past him, her worn sneakers making the only sound on the pristine tarmac. But her silence only fueled their arrogance. To them, her quiet dignity looked like defeat. Her composure looked like submission. They had no idea that silence was the most dangerous weapon in her arsenal. As she walked, whispers followed her like shadows. Who let her in? Is this some kind of joke? Someone needs to call security. The very air seemed to thicken with their disdain, their absolute certainty that she didn't belong in their rarefied world. This was just the beginning. The real cruelty was yet to come. As Maya approached the registration desk, a pack of aviation influencers descended on her like vultures spotting carrion. These weren't real pilots. They were social media personalities who had built their brands on expensive equipment and daddy's money, flying luxury aircraft for Instagram photos while real aviators risked their lives in combat zones. Their leader, a man with slicked back hair, a gold Rolex, and a flight jacket covered in sponsor patches he'd never earned, stepped forward with his phone already recording. His drone camera hovered overhead, capturing every angle of what he was certain would be viral content. Well, look what we have here, he announced to his growing audience, his voice dripping with manufactured drama. Our very own grease monkey thinking she can register for our academy. He gestured dramatically at Maya's appearance. That t-shirt is so faded it's practically advertising a junkyard, and that bag, my God, it's an insult to Skyward's prestige. The crowd that had gathered erupted in laughter. Someone in the back shouted, "Did she walk here from the gas station?" Another voice called out, "Check her pockets for bus fare." Energy drink cans and crumpled papers were thrown at her feet as the influencers performed for their cameras. The hashtag #GaragePilot was already trending, accompanied by laughing emojis and photos of Maya's worn clothing. This is a pilot sanctuary, the lead influencer continued, his voice dropping to a theatrical whisper that somehow carried across the entire tarmac. "Where we soar among the elite, not where discount dreamers come to waste our time. You're contaminating our academy just by standing here." Maya approached the registration desk methodically, her movements precise and deliberate. She handed her application to the clerk with the same steady hands that had once guided million-dollar aircraft through enemy fire. Her face revealed nothing, not anger, not hurt, not even acknowledgement of their existence. But inside she was taking notes. Every face, every insult, every moment of cruelty was being catalogued in a mind trained for strategic warfare. They thought they were destroying her dreams. They had no idea they were signing their own death warrants. The real venom came when Maya moved toward the simulator hangar. Here stood the cream of American privilege, private jet owners whose planes sat idle on tarmacs around the world, corporate heirs who had never worked a day in their lives, and trust fund babies who treated flying like an expensive hobby. Their flight suits weren't just expensive, they were works of art, custom-tailored with family crests and personal logos. These people owned aircraft worth millions but had never faced a moment of real danger in the sky. To them, aviation was just another way to show off their wealth. A tall man with a diamond-encrusted lapel pin and a flight suit that probably cost more than Maya's annual salary stepped forward. His voice carried the entitled drawl of someone who had never been told no in his entire life. "What's this? A street rat thinking she can comprehend our protocols?" he sneered, waving his monogrammed flight log like a royal scepter. "Those jeans are so torn they're practically screaming poverty. This is an airfield for titans, darling, where we command the skies, not where vagrants come to gawk with their pathetic little bags." The circle of privilege closed around Maya like a noose. More phones appeared, more cameras rolled, more hashtags began trending. This wasn't just mockery anymore. This was a systematic humiliation designed to break her spirit entirely. But the worst was yet to come. Victoria Blackwell stepped through the crowd like a queen approaching her execution block. The daughter of Skyward's chairman, she was everything Maya appeared not to be: perfectly groomed, expensively dressed, and absolutely certain of her place in the world. Her diamond-studded aviators caught the desert sun like twin spotlights of arrogance. "Oh, sweetie," Victoria purred, her voice carrying the kind of fake sympathy that cuts deeper than outright cruelty. "Turning a car key would be challenging for you, let alone operating a jet engine. This is Skyward, where we own the skies, not where little girls come to play pretend with their thrift store dreams." The crowd pressed closer, their phones capturing every second as Victoria reached for a full water bottle. Maya stood perfectly still, knowing what was coming, calculating the cost of every moment. "Consider this a kindness," Victoria laughed as she slowly tipped the bottle over Maya's sneakers. The water pooled around her feet, soaking through the worn canvas, creating a perfect metaphor for the humiliation they thought they were inflicting. "Maybe your discount shoes will look better wet," Victoria added, her voice carrying across the tarmac as the crowd exploded in applause. The hashtag kitchen pilot joined hashtag garage pilot in the trending topics. Photos of Maya's soaked feet were shared thousands of times within minutes. To the watching world, she looked defeated, humiliated, broken. They had no idea they were watching a predator assess her prey. Captain James Harrington, the head instructor, delivered what he thought would be the killing blow. "Ma'am, did you lose your way from the kitchen?" he barked, his eyes raking over her soaked sneakers. "Do us a favor, keep those dishwashing hands off my simulators. Go back to scrubbing floors before you waste more of our valuable time." The crowd erupted. Paper flight manuals were thrown at her feet. The hashtag kitchen pilot joined hashtag garage pilot in trending worldwide. The final humiliation was designed to be the killing blow. The trainees, if you could call these spoiled brats that, had orchestrated something truly vicious. They shoved Maya into the simulator pod with barely concealed glee, their excitement palpable as they prepared to destroy what they assumed were her pathetic dreams. But this wasn't just mockery, this was sabotage. While Maya settled into the pilot's seat, her tormentors worked with the efficiency of a practiced crew. They secretly modified the settings to create an impossible scenario. Maximum desert storm turbulence that would challenge even experienced pilots, input lag that would make the controls nearly unresponsive, and disabled sensors that would provide false readings. Victoria orchestrated the sabotage from outside the pod, her manicured fingers dancing over the control panel with malicious precision. "Let's see how our little charity case handles a real jet," she sneered to her audience. Her aviators reflected the simulator screens as she added one final touch, complete audio isolation so Maya couldn't hear the false warnings being fed into the system. I bet she crashes before she even gets off the ground, someone in the crowd shouted. My money's on her hitting the tower, another voice called out. As Maya gripped the controls, they fed false radar readings into her display. Phantom aircraft appeared on her screen, emergency warnings blared for problems that didn't exist, and the aircraft responded to her inputs like it was fighting her every move. The simulator was set up for failure, not just failure but spectacular, humiliating, viral-worthy failure. The pod screens flashed warning after warning. The simulated aircraft bucked and rolled like an angry horse. Maya's hands moved over the controls with precision, but the sabotaged system fought her every input. Then, inevitably, came the crash. The nosedive into a pixelated cactus that the crowd had been waiting for. The simulator screeched "failure" across every screen as emergency lights bathed the pod in red. The hangar exploded in laughter that could be heard across the entire academy. Trainees doubled over, gasping for breath between bouts of cruel mirth. Phones captured every second of what they thought was Maya's ultimate humiliation. Did she just plow straight into the desert? One trainee shouted between laughs. Someone call Academy security to escort her back to whatever trailer park she crawled out of, another voice called out. I've seen children play better flight simulator games at the mall. The laughter was deafening, cruel, and absolutely merciless. This was the moment they had been building toward, the complete and total destruction of someone they deemed beneath them. Harrington ripped her application from the clipboard, tore it to shreds and threw it in the trash. You're done here. As Maya gathered her dripping belongings and walked toward the exit, the journalists who had been covering the Academy's inclusive admission process gathered for what they assumed would be the perfect ending to their story, the defeated departure of someone who had dared to dream above her station. These weren't real journalists, they were lifestyle writers and social media content creators who specialized in documenting the lives of the wealthy and privileged. To them, Maya's humiliation was just another piece of content to monetize. There goes our crash dummy, one called out, his expensive camera capturing her every step. Thinking she could exit our airfield with any dignity intact. Those sneakers are so battered they're practically screaming failure, another added, making sure his commentary was loud enough for his livestream audience. They filmed her departure like it was a victory parade for their team, each step she took away from the Academy treated as confirmation of their worldview, that people like Maya simply didn't belong in places like this. But as Maya reached the Academy gates, something happened that none of them noticed. Her phone buzzed with a single encrypted message that would have made their blood run cold if they had been able to read it. Package delivered. Lightning ready for pickup. All systems green. Awaiting your command, Colonel. Maya's thumb moved across the screen with the same precision she had once used to authorize airstrikes. Her response was simple. Tomorrow. 0800 hours. Full tactical approach. Show them what the lightning can do. As she disappeared into the desert heat, the Academy continued its celebration. They had no idea that Maya Reynolds wasn't retreating, she was preparing for war. The next morning, Skyward Aviation Academy buzzed with excitement for their annual VIP demonstration. This was their biggest day of the year, when they showed off their facilities to potential investors, corporate sponsors, and military contractors. Media crews swarmed the airfield like ants. Corporate tycoons arrived in their private jets. Socialites stepped out of limousines in designer flight suits they would never actually use, and aviation moguls polished their egos alongside their aircraft. The tarmac gleamed under the Nevada sun, lined with jets worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Champagne flowed like water, and the conversation was filled with the kind of casual cruelty that only comes from absolute privilege. Victoria Blackwell stood at the center of it all, holding court like the queen she believed herself to be. Yesterday's humiliation of Maya had already become legend in their circles, a perfect example of how they dealt with people who didn't know their place. Did you see her face when she crashed? Victoria laughed to her audience of admirers. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The crowd laughed with her, their cruelty amplified by the safety of numbers. They had no idea they were about to meet their reckoning. They had no idea their world was about to end. At exactly 0800 hours, as the VIP demonstration was reaching its peak, something appeared on Skyward's radar that shouldn't have been there. Unscheduled. Uninvited. Unidentified. The air traffic controller's voice cracked over the radio. Unknown aircraft, you are in restricted airspace. Identify yourself immediately. Silence. Then, cutting through the morning air like the hand of God himself, came a sound that made every real pilot on the ground freeze in recognition and terror. The sonic boom of an F-35 Lightning II at full combat speed. The sound hit the academy like a physical blow. Champagne glasses shattered. Car alarms wailed. The privileged crowd dove for cover as the most advanced fighter jet in the American arsenal materialized out of the Nevada sky like a silver lightning bolt. This wasn't a demonstration. This was a declaration of war. The F-35, worth $80 million and representing the absolute pinnacle of aviation technology, executed 3 surgical passes over the academy that were so precise, so perfect, that every actual pilot on the ground knew they were witnessing something extraordinary. The first pass was a message, "I am here." The second pass was a warning, "I am superior to everything you have ever seen." The third pass was a promise, "I am coming for you." Dust clouds erupted across the tarmac as the lightning's afterburners turned the academy's pristine grounds into a sandstorm. The sound was deafening, not just the roar of the engines, but the death rattle of everything these people thought they knew about power. Then, with a precision that would make NASA engineers weep, the F-35 executed a combat landing that was so perfect it looked like it had been choreographed by angels. The engines wound down. The canopy hissed open with a sound like a coffin sealing shut. And out stepped Maya Reynolds. But this wasn't the woman they had humiliated yesterday. This Maya wore a flight suit that gleamed like armor in the desert sun. Her oxygen mask dangled at her neck like a badge of honor. Her movements were precise, controlled, and absolutely lethal. She looked like exactly what she was, a weapon of war that had just landed in their playground. The silence that followed was so complete that you could hear the desert wind whistling through the academy's hangars. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Nobody dared to make a sound. Then, from a Black Hawk helicopter that had appeared as if from nowhere, stepped General Richardson, a man whose presence commanded respect from presidents and kings. His voice, when it finally broke the silence, carried the weight of absolute authority. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his words echoing across the stunned airfield, "meet Lieutenant Colonel Maya Reynolds." The words hit the crowd like bullets. Record holder for an 18-hour continuous combat flight in an F-35 Lightning II. Former commander of the Shadow Falcon Squadron. Recipient of the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Air Medal, and the Bronze Star. And, he paused, letting the weight of his next words sink in, the anonymous benefactor who has been financing the Skyward Foundation for the past 5 years. The crowd didn't just go silent, they stopped existing. Champagne flutes slipped from nerveless fingers. Diamond aviators fell forgotten to the tarmac. The very air seemed to have been sucked out of the atmosphere. Maya Reynolds, the woman they had mocked, humiliated, and discarded like garbage, was not just a pilot. She was their superior in every possible way. She was their judge, jury, and executioner. And she had come to collect what was owed. A retired Air Force general stepped forward, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "Colonel Reynolds, your mastery of the Lightning is a triumph of skill and will. The Air Force will honor you with a Distinguished Service Citation for your contributions to combat aviation." The cameras that had once mocked her now captured her triumph. The hashtags #Lightning Queen drowned out #Garage Pilot and #Kitchen Pilot. An aerospace engineer emerged from the crowd. "Lockheed Martin will dedicate a research wing in your name for advanced fighter jet technology." The Smithsonian announced a permanent exhibit for her combat legacy. The FAA established a safety award in her name. Maya stepped from the cockpit, her boots striking the tarmac with deliberate precision. She walked past the trembling executives, past Victoria Blackwell, whose diamond aviators now seemed pathetic. She paused at the trash can where her application lay in tatters. With a flick of her wrist, she dropped Victoria's empty water bottle into the can. "Trash belongs with trash," she said quietly. To Captain Harrington she turned with eyes like ice. "You teach people to fly, yet you fly too low, and you dwell with vermin." Before the press, she produced a stack of documents. "Effective immediately, I'm acquiring 80% of Skyward Aviation Academy shares. Lesson 1 under my command, learning when to bow your head." The termination papers were signed on the tarmac. Victoria, expelled on the spot. Her father's influence powerless against Maya's command. The fallout was cataclysmic. Skyward's culture of elitism shattered under Maya's iron will. She transformed it into a combat-level flight academy for underprivileged youth, free of charge, merit-based, where the sky belonged to those who earned it. The trainees who had mocked her were blacklisted. Victoria's expulsion became a national scandal. Harrington's career was obliterated. The press uncovered Maya's past, a decorated combat pilot who had flown covert missions, her scars earned in dogfights, her anonymity a choice to honor the unsung. They called her the Lightning Queen. Her t-shirt and jeans became symbols of untouchable authority. Maya's closing statement echoed like a sonic boom. I wasn't here to fit in. I was here to clean house. And sometimes to clean you start by taking out the trash. Maya Reynolds didn't come for applause. She came to reclaim what arrogance had tried to steal: the sky, the respect, the dignity that belonged to those who truly earned their wings. The next time someone mocks an unassuming woman in worn jeans, they might want to look skyward first. She just might descend in an F-35. Because sometimes, the most dangerous person in the room is the one everyone underestimates. Sometimes, the woman they call nobody is actually somebody they should have been saluting all along. And sometimes, justice doesn't just knock on the door, it breaks the sound barrier getting there. What would you do if you discovered the person you humiliated was actually your superior all along? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories of justice served.